Hello my lovelies. Today I'm going to do some resin geodes in these geode moulds. Now these are just cheap moulds, so I'm testing them out today. These are off Amazon and they're very flimsy. As you can see, they're very flimsy. So we'll see how those go today. I've not tried them yet. I've got some beautiful resin moulds. I mean, these are just lovely. These are from Just For You Online UK, and these are fab moulds. They are more expensive, obviously, because the quality is much better. So today I just wanted to test to see if these moulds are any good, really. There's 5 in here. That upsets me. I don't like the 5. I should be doing 4, but we've got 3 that are a bit bigger, and then these 2 are quite small, quite a bit smaller, which I'm not happy about. I would rather have 4 of the similar size. So I'm just going to do 4 today and miss 1 out, but I don't like the fact that it's quite a bit smaller than the other 3. So I'm going to give them a go and see how we get on. I'm not using any mould release, on them at all. I'm just going to use them as they are, because these, the better quality ones from These Are Just For You Online UK, as I said, these don't need any mould release and they come out beautifully. So we will see. And the resin I'm using is Ultracast XT. So I haven't tried that particular resin in these types of resin pours, like in the coaster moulds. I've only used it as a cover on my tiles. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to put my mask on, so I shall be talking over it, over the video afterwards, because I shall have my mask on today, unlike the one I did the other day on how to resin your painted tile coaster thingies. So today I'm back to wearing my mask, as we should always do. So I'm going to crack on with this and then see how they turn out. This resin is a 2:1 ratio, so you can either mix it by weight or volume, and I've decided to do it by weight today. So I mixed 150 grams of resin and 75 grams of hardener. So I mixed it thoroughly for 4 minutes, making sure to scrape down the sides of the pot and the sides of the stick, so all the resin and the hardener are thoroughly mixed together. Otherwise we could end up with little sticky spots on our finished piece. Then I just tip a bit into all these little silicone pots ready to mix in with my pigments. And I just remembered I needed some white, so I just added another one. And this is the Just For You Online Supreme White Pigment Paste. And you only use a tiny little bit, and actually this was too much for the little bit of resin that I had. Just mixing that in thoroughly. And then this is also Just For You Online, and this is Amethyst Pigment, and it is such a beautiful colour, so rich. I just love this colour. Mixing it really well, because we don't want any little bits that aren't mixed, because it could end up floating to the top of a coaster. And this is Pearl-Ex, and this is the turquoise. And again, just mixing it thoroughly. And it just gives a beautiful shimmery finish. Look how gorgeous that is. Just making it sure it's all mixed together. And then more Pearl-Ex, and this is the Brilliant Gold. I love this Pearl-Ex, it works really nicely, and I use it in paints, my acrylic paints, as well as in resin work, so it gets well used, this Pearl-Ex. And look how gorgeous that gold is. It really is a brilliant gold. It's well named, this gold is. Brilliant gold. And then this is just a standard cheapo lilac mica. And some of these cheaper ones do work very well. And this is a beautiful colour. It mixed in just the same as the others. And a lovely shimmery finish to it. These are some gold chips, like gold little stones. And these, I actually can't even remember where I got these from. I've had them in my stash for a long time because I've been doing resin work for so many years and built up quite a stash of nice little stones and gems and micas and all sorts of different things. And these are some sea green glass stones, again from my stash. Because I do lots of different crafts, so I use these in a lot of my crafts. So it's always nice to have a little stash in, you don't have to keep buying stuff. And these are the same as the previous gold ones, but obviously these are green. And they're just a beautiful shimmery green. And these little pots that I've got them in, I got from a craft show. And they were from the stall, which also has a website, and they're called Every Craft's a Pound. So just putting on some clear resin around that centre to keep those little gold flakes in position, and then pouring the amethyst over the top. Now I did make a mistake here, I think, because I think I should really have done just the clear over those stones. I think it would have given a much nicer effect. But I've gone on with the amethyst, and I do love the amethyst colour. I think it looks beautiful. Perhaps shouldn't have used it where I did though. But I do get a bit carried away sometimes. And that gorgeous turquoise. How beautiful is that? Just stunning. And then the brilliant gold. These Ex pigments are just so lovely. And that's that cheapo lilac colour. And over with the heat gun. I have to be careful when we're getting the bubbles out, because using the silicone moulds we can soon melt the moulds. So I do prefer to use a heat gun rather than a torch, but even so, still have to be very careful not to melt the mould. And then some clear on the top, and this is where I thought, oh, I should have perhaps not used the colour, so just thought I'll just wash it out a little bit with some clear. I just love flapping, you know. I like flapping, doing all sorts of craft things. So I love doing these sort of things. And then I'm just getting one of the gold bits out of there. And then I'm just going to come in with the white pigment paste that I mixed with the resin. And I think because I put so much of the pigment paste in that little amount of resin, although it was a small amount, I think it made it a little bit heavy, so it did kind of sink a bit to the bottom. But I think that was my fault, because I just used too much of it, really. So getting the heat gun on, it moves that white pigment around and gets rid of the bubbles. And then I'm just coming back in with some of that beautiful gold. Now this actually turned out to be the bottom of the coaster, because I preferred the underside when they all got finished. The underside looked really nice, I loved it. So I did change it over and use this as the bottom, because for me it just blended a bit too much really. I wasn't overly keen of how much it all blended together. So I'm just using up all these colours, finishing off with this beautiful blue, just to fill the moulds up a bit more and to use all my colours up. I do want to test this lilac out on its own. I've got a few of these colours that was the cheap brand, well unbranded really, because there's no names or colour names or anything on them. So I want to see how they work on their own in a project when I do some resin. So just finishing off all those pots, getting them all well used out. It looks like a peacock blue, that. It's just beautiful. I do want to fill them up as much as possible because I want to make sure all those stones are under the resin. I don't want anything sticking out. So just putting some more of that supreme white on, just to see if it will sit on the top, but it really did all sink. So I'll have to reassess that for next time and not put so much of the pigment in. And then over with the heat gun just to get rid of any bubbles. And then I did mix some more resin to put over the top, and I mixed 40 grams of resin and 20 grams of hardener. I mixed it for 4 minutes, just the same as I did the first batch. Doesn't matter how much mixture of the resin and hardener you make, you still have to mix it for the same amount of time. So I did 4 minutes, stirring it slowly so it didn't create too many bubbles, and then poured it on the top, spreading it out with my little popsicle stick to make it cover nice and evenly. Now these are the coasters that I used in the video number 106, where I showed how to do a flood coat on resin coasters. So if you haven't already, check that out and hopefully you'll find that helpful. I'll link that below to make it easier to find. Just making sure to use all that resin up and fill them as full as I can. And then over with the heat gun a final time to get rid of any bubbles. So that's them all nicely dried. It's 24 hours later. I've got my gloves on because I don't want to get fingerprints on them, because they're not fully cured, even though they're perfectly dry to touch. So we'll see how they demold. Now, there was a couple of things I thought about really. I should have put a clear resin around the edge on the little bits of the gems that I put in. And I'm wondering if the white pigment paste will have settled on the bottom because it's quite heavy pigment. So I think that may settle on the bottom because it's all kind of sunk. So we'll see. But I should have put a clear resin around these outside. But I think they look rather lovely. So let's see if they come out of the moulds okay. No problem so far. Nicely clean edges. Well, that came out with no problem at all, and that looks beautiful. So I did lose those gems a bit, didn't I? Yeah, see, that's the bottom, and the white did sink. I think the bottom looks beautiful actually. There's a few bubbles in there at the bottom, but I think that looks really rather lovely. So I did lose my little gems, didn't I? But that's that one. This is the best bit, the unmoulding. It's a little bit stuck there. Did think I got a little bit of resin over the top of the mould. So let's just see if we can work it loose without tearing the mould. Yeah. So I need to trim that little bit off there. A few bits at the top that I just need to trim off. And the underside, I think the underside looks really rather pretty. So next time I will just do the clear around the edge. But that looks lovely. So the mould's held up nicely to the heat. Obviously with all these moulds you have to be careful with torching because we don't want to be melting the moulds. So that came out nicely. And that's the bottom. Yeah, little bubble there with a little mist bit. But it's giving a nice finish. And then the fourth one, they're actually coming out really easily, so I am pleased about that. So I think these moulds, because they are very cheap, you can get moulds very, very cheap, and obviously some of them we do pay a lot of money for, but you can certainly use the cheap ones. So that's the backs. I think I like the backs better. So that's the 4. And I think because I've lost my gems from around the edge, I think I may go over it with a gold marker, some sort of gold leafing around the edge to finish them off. Yeah, definitely like the bottom better. So I finished them off with a gold marker and a flood coat of clear resin, and that filled in all those little air bubble holes, and they look beautiful. I'm so happy with them. And I did the other side as well with some gold marker, so just finished off that side nicely, and now I like both sides, and I did a flood coat on both sides too. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please consider subscribing and click on the little bell notification so you get notified when I bring out more videos. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.